Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Backstory Podcast. Today, we get to go into a little bit more of the interviews that we've been doing. As I mentioned, I'm going to be bringing in several people that I want you to meet. Most of these people have been with our organization in and out and been around for some time, but it's been really fascinating for us to watch all the incredible amount of growth that has taken and gone in all the different ways. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to be able to bring you here. So although we're not always looking for the most famous names out there, we're looking for people that I think you can relate to really well. And one of them today, I'm very honored to bring you, is Chris Morris. Chris has been with us for quite some time. She used to do a very active role in the VirtualLight Broadcast. She did what we called the good news segment, which sounds really wonderful, but it's not always easy finding good news in our world. And she did so every month in this incredible segment that we had on the VirtualLight Broadcast. She's also done quite a lot of the work and attended many of the seminars and many of the teacher trainings. So wanted to bring you today and interview Chris Morris. Welcome on.
Hello. Thanks for having me. It's so good to be with you again.
Absolutely. So I've told people a little bit of how we've met. We met a long time ago in an early seminar in Mission Beach, and it was really fascinating things. You know, you meet people and some of these things. We met all of our board members in one early meeting. It was just really fascinating how some of these things happen out. So I'm sure that the group has a lot to do with bringing us all together at the right time and the right place. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, because you're doing some really exciting healing work. You've always done healing work. You've always had your own opening spaces area, and you taught all sorts of things that really blended together with what the group's been teaching and the work that we've been doing. Tell me about what you're doing now.
What I'm doing now, yes, I'm working the piece that's really integrating in the rest of my business is what I would call the somatic nervous system work. And specifically, it's through the somatic experiencing lens. That's the training that I'm doing. It's a 3-year trauma training.
Okay, back up and tell me somatic. What does that word mean specifically?
Yes, lovely. Somatic really just means of the body. It's the body and the living experience in the body. It's actually a big word in the zeitgeist, in the healing zeitgeist right now. And so it's our living experience of being who we are. So my somatic experience, my lived experience of being Chris Morris in my body is a felt sense. And I'm the only person that can have this experience, as you are the only person that can experience Steve Rother. And it's a way that we're in touch with sensations and the way that life moves through us, but also energy moves through us, which is emotions as well.
Right.
But underneath emotions are the sensory indicators of what emotion we're having. So if we work with the somatic piece, the sensory piece in our nervous system, we actually work with the neurobiological level of healing, which is what all higher mammals work with. But humans are really smart, and we have our neocortex, and we actually shut down, right? We shut down the natural processes to processing these traumas. Animals don't have it, but they also don't have the thinking brain. They don't get stuck the way we do unless they're in an unnatural habitat or environment.
Interesting. Fascinating stuff. And so how do you work with people one-on-one with this, or is this a course you're teaching, or how does that work?
I've done actually all of it. I teach a movement. So there's somatic movement that actually can help reduce cortisol, can help increase can increase awareness. Yeah. So I teach a class once a week of that. And it's partially because I need it, but it's helpful for
we always teach those things we need to learn the most. I hate that part, but that's true.
I mean, if we're looking to longevity, we have to keep moving. We have to keep figuring out what works. So I work it through movement, and I call it movement medicine or somatic movement medicine. And it's working with just different ways that we stay connected from our sensory motor nervous system up through our limbic system, that emotional brain, up to our neocortex, to our thinking brain. And then I teach people different pieces. I have a heal portal, I call it Heal, where it's got the movement medicine in it, plus somatic practices. Because part of all of our healing work really requires these different practices for us to keep doing the things over and over. That's how we learned, and that's how things get stuck, and that's how habits are there. So I put somatic practices in my heal portal. I put subtle energy, information, and practices in my heal portal, and also herbalism. I'm a master herbalist now. And so herbs work with the cellular components to a lot of these pieces, the biology to the physio.
So what does that look like when you're working with that with the body? Is this stuff you eat? So you very carefully choose what goes into the body, or how does what areas do you specifically work on?
Okay, so that was like, I work with the movement people,
right?
But I also work one-on-one, and I teach courses. So I do all of the different things. It depends on, a lot of people come to me with a lot of nutritional information already, but it just depends on what's going on and how deeply people are able to work.
Right.
Now the herbs are more of a support as opposed to the foundational piece. The nervous system work really is the foundational piece right now. And then as we're literally pulling the issues in the tissues. Remember, we talked about that a long time ago.
I do remember you talking about that part of your work. Yeah.
Right. We're literally pulling energy out of the cells, right? So we need to move it out of the system too. But there's, with the somatic work and the way I'm just tracking people in their nervous system is basically what I'm doing, and helping them find ways to stabilize and settle their nervous system. But we're not always supposed to have a settled nervous system. What we want is a flexible nervous system.
Oh, good point.
Yeah. So I'll bring you my little thing. I have a really big one.
I love it.
But this is the only one that will show up on the camera here. So think of this as our nervous system, right? We have the fight, flight. And I remember you used to teach about this.
We do a lot of work with the vagus nerve. That's correct.
Yeah.
Which is all what you're talking about. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we could have, say the fight flight is the gas pedal that gets us moving. That's mobilization. That's our on, right?
Right.
So we can get stuck on up here where it's a lot of energy in our system, right? And it's not settled. It's like vibrating, right? And our system can only do this for so long before we're burning too much metabolism, and then we go to stuck off. So that's the break. And there's in the parasympathetic system, there's, have you talked with your people about this? There's the polyvagal system.
The whole polyvagal system. Yes. There's different aspects of it that you can work with. And the group is mostly exercising the vagus nerve. They basically say that it's how we interact with a lot of things anyway, and that's really what carries all this energy, and our empathy in the world is through the vagus nerve. So we've been doing exercises in Light Master and a whole bunch of other things of that nature. And we get into polyvagal theory a little bit, but it's, in all honesty, that's more about resolving emotional problems that somebody may have. And we don't generally get into that unless it's in a private session with somebody or something of that nature. Yeah.
Gotcha. Right. So that stuck off, that's the dorsal vagus. That's the more
dorsal, right.
Right. That's the more primitive one. You're working with the social engagement system, the relational system.
Correct.
Right. Which is ventral vagus. And so when that dorsal comes on, it's like I was seeing what are they, sea urchins
it close up like that. Yeah.
Yeah. You touch them and they move back.
Sea anemones. Yes. They're called sea anemones. Yes.
That's what they are. Humans have that response too, right? And to fear, we literally take this posture.
Right.
And when shutdown comes fast, when that break comes on fast, it is literally shut down in our system. And this is where people get into freeze or functional freeze.
Well, it's part of the fight or flight syndrome, actually, part of the triggers that work with that.
So the freeze is actually, it's a break coming down, and all of that fight or flight energy is still there, but now the break is on top of it. So things aren't happening.
Right.
Yeah. And so working to come out of freeze and even functional, they call it functional freeze, where part of our system is shut down. You know this definitely better than I. Like, our nervous system is like an equalizer board.
Always.
It's like,
yeah.
Right. So it's not just not as simple as on and off. And so we can have some things that are off, and that's down more in our gut, the vagus nerve below the diaphragm. And this is where 80% of chronic illness can come from, is from this functional freeze or the shutdown.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Well, that's the same freeze that basically is, like you said, it's the dorsal aspect of the polyvagal theory, but it's also basically, you see it in nature a lot. If you see a deer that's running from a tiger and they get caught by the tiger, they freeze. That's all they do. They don't fight back. They basically freeze.
No.
They go into it. Yeah, exactly. They go into a very neutral state, and interesting how it works. Yeah, we experience a lot of that stuff, and getting out of freeze. You're absolutely right. That's I've known people that live their life in that state. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And in this world, it kind of makes sense. There's so much going on. And we talked about a little bit before of the generational trauma or the transgenerational trauma, right? So some of that is in our systems too.
Well, that's something the group is starting to work with. There's some fascinating things that they're basically working in Lightmaster. We're talking a lot about the universal energy, which is basically what our scientists are calling dark energy. So it fills up 78% of the universe. We just don't know about it. We don't know how it works, but it's what connects us all. It's what basically we feel and keeps us all in place in many times. And there are times when we put ourselves in that tube, in that illusion of the timeline, to work off challenges from our past family, from our history in some ways. So there's generational things that are passed on that we actually signed up for. We don't have any clue about them until they show up in our field. And we're looking for all these things that, okay, I've got this imprint, I've got this imprint. I've known people that have imprints of being abused, but there's no abuse histories in their history. It's fascinating. And basically how do you learn that and be able to go back and do that? That's one of the timeline healing things that the group's been working with too.
That's great.
Fascinating stuff. Yeah, well, it all ties together, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. And yeah, and we can have those helper ancestors that think that they're helping, right? But they're still sending the signals of don't shine your light, don't be too big, don't move forward, don't do this, right? Because that's how they stayed safe. So they're sending us that signal. That's more subtle energy. But through our nervous system, we can have like global high intensity activation that we inherited from our mother or some of our energy from our father. And, that's what I see a lot of the younger generation has right now. Like they're just global high and they don't have the experiences.
They don't have the experience. Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating. Wonderful stuff. What age ranges do you normally work with?
I have some in their 20s. I love working with kids in their 20s, young.
Yes.
But generally I'm in the elder or the apprenticing to be elder group. So the 40s through the 60s is generally the places that the people that I'm working with right now. And I have a lot of like light workers and sensitives that are coming to me that have a very strong spiritual place, a very strong spiritual perspective and background and that kind of thing. But it's almost like we're playing cleanup. And I had to do this with my own system, like playing cleanup of all these things. Like, wait, there's these little things in here that we can't get to. And yeah.
It's fascinating. I actually see a huge awakening of light workers globally. That is actually unfolding. It's probably going to be unfolding a lot during 2025. I'm not sure it's showing yet, but it's coming. And for us to be in place to be able to talk that language, I know that a lot of our work we got very high end with our work and only brought in the latest and greatest and the most high level stuff that people could come up with. And sometimes we were talking over people's head. Because we didn't have the base information down. The group really wants me to keep that awakening information for people that are coming through too. So I hope that hits your energies there and your stuff that you're working with too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I noticed that I have folks that are kind of more the new people are just kind of they know some of the stuff.
Yeah.
And even folks that have been around the block a time or two, right?
Uh,
They still know the stuff that you've been talking and that I've been experiencing. But I'm really glad to hear that there's an awakening happening because I mean, it's the only way that we're going to shift out of this. Really, it's survival energy is what we are kind of stuck in, and we're stuck in a loop with this survival energy, and we have to make that transition or leap or evolution in consciousness because right now we're in between animal and the enlightened society type experience, and we need to make that leap. But everywhere we look, we can see survival energy. That's the main energy on the planet right now. So as they come up,
it's been, yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, but and the group calls that the third to fifth dimension. They basically say we're living in the fifth dimension, but we don't know how to use the rules. We keep using all the third dimensional ideas and the rules in the third dimension. So we're learning to anchor that, learning to use the higher aspects of some of these things are really what the group is starting to bring in a lot of. We've done it a lot with the Park Bench Project as well. That's basically what the Park Bench Project was all about, letting people experience those higher states and come into that. So yeah, some absolutely fascinating things coming. Where do you think we are? How do you think things are unfolding? Tell me the state of the world according to Chris.
Ooh, world according to Chris. Okay, yeah. So the way I see it, and I love your input on this. Like, let me sit up straight for this. So,
Here, I got to sit up too.
Right, things are crumbling. Things are collapsing. Like these ways of being, this ways of structuring our society. They're not working. No matter what what side tries to do whatever, they're not working. And underneath, like this awakening energy, this higher dimensional energy has been rising for a long time. And the way that you all have worked, right? All of the little pieces all over the planet. One of the things that my team has been telling me, so I'm so interested to hear what you say, right? Because I remember you saying that the fourth and fifth dimension go together, time and space go together, I think is how you said it. But what I've seen is there's a lot of chaotic energy, of course, but the way my team has been talking about it, it's like this transition through the fourth dimension is where I've heard it called false light exists, and it's almost like a kaleidoscope where it distorts everything. And like we're kind of in that wavy, it's the way I describe it to people, only people who have seen Harry Potter would understand it. They're trying to get Harry Potter from one place to another, and all the wizards and the magical beings, they all turn into Harry Potter. And as they leave their dwelling, they're immediately met with the Death Eaters and all of the different people, and they're in the clouds, and it's
right.
Yeah, you're trying to get through. That's what my team has showed me is where we're moving through right now. And that's part of why so many people have been so disillusioned and kind of worshiping false light type of thing.
Interesting.
It's an interesting, I don't know if it's probably a direction not to go today, but
no, we talk about everything. Actually, that's the cool stuff.
Right, but it's a very wide dimension,
right?
But there's not really anything there to grab hold of, right? It's just to move through. But the way that my team has been saying, like people are getting lost in there.
Yeah, it's easy to do. The group gave some very easy illustrations for people to understand that. See if this fits for what you say. They basically said for us to come out of unity into the third dimension, we had to go through the second dimension. This is where we picked up our ego. This is where we picked up the whole idea of duality, which is an illusion. And that's what they say. Those are the two big ones that we have to lose as we go through the fourth dimension, which again is a place to be imprinted. We're being imprinted with triality. We're being imprinted, and we have to release all these ideas of the good and bad and the up and down and good and right and wrong and all this stuff. We need to understand that everything is a fluid motion, and that we can jump in at any time and make anything out of it we want. And the creator beings is a huge part of that whole aspect. So yeah, that's basically what they said. The other thing that they said that will tie in exactly with what you said is they've been saying for years that the feminine energy is rising. I think what we just saw in the political world is the masculine energy fighting back.
Right.
I really do. I think that's what it feels like. It feels like the feminine energy was fighting and the masculine energy came in with its force versus harmony, basically. They work in a different way. And not that one's better than the other. They need to blend together. But I do believe that this whole thing was a reaction. And I see so many people stunned. I mean,
Absolutely.
I haven't turned on the news for weeks.
I only check headlines, and there's not a lot of good news in there. Yeah, and my team says, like, if I see a headline, they're like, give it 2 days, and there'll be the
Oh, good. The opposite side of it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, so the news in our fourth, our fourth wall of the news is gone. It probably never was totally objective, right? I mean,
I don't think any of it's perfectly objective. No, they had to make money. They had to, they had their influences just like everybody. Yeah.
Right. Right. But you talked about this with the group before, like the service piece, right? The politicians, they're not in service. Like this whole, like, and as these youngers they don't play the same way that like my generation. I'm Gen X. Gen X is, has the rebel icon, but we also played the games too, right? We played the games too.
Sure.
To the Gen Z, my kids are both Gen Z. They're not playing the same way.
Hey, Mom, you go play your own game. I'm not going to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. And their whole psyche is different, right? But
Right.
they've also inherited the stuff from us. And so as we heal our pieces, you've said this too. It goes to our descendants, it goes forward in time, and it goes backward.
Goes backward and forward in the timeline. That's correct.
Yeah.
We heal our grandchildren and we heal our grandparents at the same time.
Yes.
Strange stuff. Yeah, absolutely fascinating things to work with here. So you have hope for humanity then?
I'm recovering hope for humanity.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It is. I am starting to see, like, I really, my system shut down for multiple reasons, and I am starting to see the beauty and the awe. The challenge about that, right, from the top-down mentality, from the mental aspect, if we're trying to find that and we can't find it, that's because something in our nervous system is shut down, and we just don't have access to it.
Not letting us process it, not letting us bring
Right.
it in. Awesome. Well,
Yeah. So that connection back to the earth, right, which is a really interesting piece in this evolution, right? It's we don't want to put our weight on the earth, but I mean, you said it before, she's a big lady and we're all interconnected, right?
Right.
So
And we're all, the idea is to be able to walk in the harmony with it.
that's it.
The group has said, I'd never experienced this, but the group said it is possible to reach a vibrational level to where you can walk across the field of grass and have the grass grow stronger because you walked on it rather than have it die out. So that level of harmony I've not experienced yet, but I'm reaching for it. So, it's basically gives us a great idea of what we can work with and how we can harmonize with things. Fascinating.
I wrote that book Between. It's not a great book, and it was my little.
I have it. I have your book.
Oh, you do have it.
I do it.
There was
I have a copy that's signed by the author.
But there's a point in there that I'm remembering that as it was channeled, and it was channeled like from me to me, but in the world that was emerging, right? The character would walk and her feet would be in heart, like it was like the grass would kind of draw her feet in. It was a complete relationship, which is what I hear you saying.
Awesome. Fascinating stuff, my dear. Fascinating stuff. I think we're in a good path to be able to bring that together. Is there anything else you'd like to share today before we bring this to a close? I'm very excited about being able to, like I said, I love being able to share other people's work with our group and all the people that follow our work. It really gives you a wider variety of different things. And it's really strange because we can be using different words to describe the same thing, but we're describing the same thing. It's
Absolutely.
We're part of the family. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And I hear your words and I'm like, oh, I heard those words in my head. And Yeah, it's good. I think the last thing that I would say is this piece for me, like as I was reaching for what I would call the angelic realm, right? There was a part of me that needed to like go deep. The deeper you go, the wider you go. And I don't think of it as a hierarchy in this ascension or evolution or whatever we want to call it. It's circle, right? And so it goes in all directions, but we have the vision of this hierarchy of whether things are up in this dimension or down in this dimension. But my team was like, okay, you're going deep into the shadow places. This is the cave places, and to do that, you actually get to go wider. And so it's been this piece of working with shadow and working with light and integrating it into this wider aspect of wholeness.
Well, now we have to talk further. We're not done yet. It's real simple. Now, we just did a whole segment, a whole 2 days on the shadow self, embracing your dark side for positive growth. So many people don't get that piece. They look toward the light. They want to come into spirituality to find the light. They want to think, they read Norman Vincent Peale. They want to think positive. They want to do all these fun things, which are great. But if you don't acknowledge and work with that dark side, it will eat you alive.
It'll eat you alive. It'll destroy you.
That's exactly look what happened to the Catholic Church. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Put it all on pause, to determine this is all you can do here. Try to control yourself. You're a multi-dimensional being, and you need to look at that. You need to look at all aspects of yourself there and not call one good or bad. Just look at the whole thing and embrace everything that you can embrace. It was really interesting. My sister was watching me as I was putting some of that together, and she had all kinds of questions. She said, "Well, why do you want to take people to the dark side? I don't understand. That's the scary stuff." And I go, "Well, have you ever watched a movie by Quentin Tarantino? Have you ever read a poem by tons of them actually, but Edgar Allan Poe or almost any of the. This is really, really dark stuff, but it's so beautiful. Absolutely. So there's absolute beauty in the darkness when you can find it and take the judgment off of it and really just look for it. And that just balances you in so many ways. And you talk about widening, that widens the whole perception field.
It really does.
Yeah.
It gives us our dimensionality.
Literally. Yeah, it really does. It really does. It anchors us in that whole line, illusion of timeline and the whole thing. So absolutely fascinating. Well, good, my dear. I've really enjoyed connecting with you. We got to stay in touch. We'll have to play sometime at some point and say hi to your family for me, and I'll say hi to mine for you. But
absolutely. Oh, and the very last thing that I will say is I am so proud of you for putting your website in your name. It's under Steve Rother, and I was waiting for that day. I've been waiting for that. I am so
Thank you so much. I did it under the guise of the fact that we've been being hacked quite a lot under espavo.org. So I kind of did it under the guise, well, I'll just switch it over. But the group has said that from the beginning. In the beginning, I was asking them what to call them, and they said, "What's wrong with Steve Rother?" And I go, "Well, I don't know. I don't want to do that." So, thank you for saying that, Chris. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. We will absolutely stay in touch.
We'll play. And people can find you through openingspaces.com.
Correct.
And be able to connect with you in that way.
All my information is on there.
Sounds wonderful. All right, hon. It's been a pleasure. Take care. We will talk again.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Espavo. And I'll return you to the studio. Thanks so much for being with us here today. This was a Backstory podcast, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So enjoy the journey, everybody.